Oh, look out now. It's the Bourbon and Banter podcast, the biggest and most honest podcast in all of bourbon. That's right, friends and neighbors. We are here with everything you need to drink curious. So sit back, grab a pour, and check your feelings at the door, because we're here to lay it down for you as only Bourbon and Banter can. Fall is here, and your hosts have taken just enough time out from our monster cereal buffet to record this episode. We're going to grab a little bourbon, maybe a few caramel apples, a dozen pumpkin cake donuts, and try to make it to the end of this thing without cratering from the sugar rush. Here we go.
I got to say, Bob, I like the way you think. A couple dozen pumpkin cake donuts, that would hit the spot right about now.
Yeah, and the caramel apples. And you know what's good about that is, you can kind of go together, because if it's a caramel apple without all the nuts on the outside, you can actually form the pumpkin donut around the caramel apple. Then you've got a caramel apple pumpkin cake donut apple. See, that's how that works there. Some things that's you learn every day.
Figuratively and literally a mouthful.
Yeah. Well, I got a big mouth. So there you go.
Well, Bob, I have to tell you, I hope your liver is on the mend. We just finished another 30 days of bourbon, celebrating Bourbon Heritage Month, and I want to give a big shout out to every single one of you bourbon lovers out there that participated, whether you signed up for our giveaway, whether you tweeted, whether you participated in the 30 days of bourbon, completed it or not. We really appreciate you guys. Made it one of our best years ever.
911,000 entries plus.
That's right. In the giveaway.
That's nice. And 7.5 million bourbon lovers connected online, 15 million impressions. I'm probably stealing Pops' thunder.
Yeah, go for it, brother.
Talk about all
you sound like a social media maven.
Well, I got the numbers right in front of me, but just think about that. 7.5 million people connected via social media, via Drink Curious, via Bourbon Heritage Month. Bourbon brings people together. Maybe we need to send a couple dozen cases to Washington. Maybe that could, help some people get some shit together.
No shit, right? Well, I've always said, people meet over a drink or meet over a meal. Both is even better, and people realize that we're not so different from each other. But you're absolutely right. We connected with a lot of people this year, and I'm always stunned and amazed at how far our reach is when we celebrate the best damn month of the year. So, like I said, big kudos to everybody who participated, and a big kudos and thanks to all of our brand sponsors this year. We had a lot of our partners who come back year after year to support us and be part of what we do. Always thankful for their support. We had some new brands involved this year as well, and glad to see them becoming part of what we do year in and year out. And we are in process of notifying everyone. I think, I'm still shocked every year because we send out these prize notifications and then people don't respond. And then we have to choose another name. We don't respond, despite emphasizing, please add us to your address book so it doesn't go to spam. But anyway, we've got, I think, 2 things left. We're waiting for people to confirm. And once we do that, we'll start shipping everything out, which is going to take a little bit of time to get all the prize packs out, to get out some of the coffee, get some of the Big O ginger liqueur out, a Broncos helmet, Michter's giant cocktail gift pack as well. So there are 2 people who have not responded. So check your spam folders, and hopefully you're within the 48-hour notification period if you're one of those winners. If not, stay close. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff between now and next year's Bourbon Heritage this month, so you won't be left out whatsoever. But Bob, 30 days. Did you survive the challenge this year?
Yeah, I survived it because I will admit I didn't hit all 30 days, but I did survive it. I think this is the 5th or 6th year that I've been around with this, even before I joined Bourbon and Banter. So it is a trek, and it is a good time. And you always fall back in love with something that you haven't tried in a while, that you reach in the back of the shelf to grab, and so there's always things that come up. It's like, boy, it was nice. I forgot I had that bottle. I had a couple Maker's Private Selects that I had forgotten were in the back of the bar that were fantastic, and always an enjoyable discovery or rediscovery of something on your bar. Do you find that happening with you? Pops has got, for those of you who aren't aware, Pops actually has he has 3 homes, all lined up, and he's got craft whiskey in one home and then major distilleries in the second home and the third home he lives in. So I know you've got tons, but, do you ever find something that you forgot about and go back to it during Bourbon and Heritage Month and it hits you again?
I do. I mean, with the job that we do here, we're very fortunate. We get a lot of bourbon sent. We drink a lot of different whiskeys. And as a result, things get, stuck behind another bottle. You don't remember that you've got it sometimes, and you pull it out and you try it again. You're like, wow. What I find also is sometimes you try something that maybe you weren't excited about before, and now you taste it now and your palate has changed a little bit. And you're kind of like, I'm kind of digging that. I kind of like where that's going. So those things happen all the time. And that's one of the most fun things. And when people comment on social media about what they're learning or what they're experiencing, that's a common thread that we get year in, year out. But, I was talking to somebody about, the success of this. And I was coming up with, how else could we do this, like 30 days or 12 days or some sort of challenge? So I think we're going to, in December, I think we should launch the 12 days of bourbon cream. And each day for 12
wait a
days.
minute, hold on. Wait a goddamn minute. Now look, are there even 12 bourbon creams out there worth drinking?
Absolutely. They're worth exploring.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to have to work on that, Pops. I'm not convinced 12 days of bourbon cream.
All right. Just putting it out there. Wait, we're going to let the listener decide. If you guys want to do 12 days of bourbon cream, drop us a note, podcast@bourbonbanter.com.
Yeah.
And I'll compile the list and share it with Bob. And
yeah, this is going to be one of those lists where, everybody votes on it, and then I pick what the hell we want to do anyway. So that's how this is going to work right now.
But just think about the donut dunking opportunities.
You do what did I just get done talking about? The donut with the bourbon and the caramel apple and the pumpkin donut. All of that can happen. You don't need the cream. Leave the cream out. We try to be healthy here at Bourbon and Banter, ladies and gentlemen. And so the cream, Pop's just trying to add some unnecessary calories. Would you rather have bourbon and perhaps a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream? Or would you rather just have bourbon cream? I think it's a pretty clear choice.
I think you're splitting hairs into two men who are follically challenged on our heads. That's never a good idea.
I'm telling you, man.
All right. Well,
leave that bourbon cream.
We'll see what the people say. Speaking of the people, we like people, and that's why we launched the Drink Curious members community. And we talk about this every podcast, and this is one of the things that really I look forward to every day is checking in with the community, seeing what people are up to. And I always love to highlight some of the more fascinating conversations that pop up organically from the group, because you never know what people are going to post. And more importantly, you never know what people are going to respond to and really get charged about. So a couple of things that popped up this week or this past month since we started Bourbon Heritage Month is someone brought up the question about the martini glass. Love it or hate it. It's a classic style glass, and is it really necessary? And that got a lot of people's feedback on it. And then someone threw in, just for good fun, along with the martini glass, the whole reality of the neat whiskey glass. This is a glass that was developed and used, I think it's by the San Francisco Spirits Competition, as their exclusive tasting glass. And this thing looks like a little pot of honey. I mean, it's the most ridiculous glass. I find them cumbersome, and I just don't like them, Bob.
No, you know what those are. So back in 1876, there was a glassmaker who was trying to get people into using glass canisters for their ink with their pens instead of ones made out of metal. And so, unbeknownst to everyone, Diageo found several 100,000 cases of these in the back of Stitzel Weller several years ago, and that is what the neat glass is. It's these unused glass ink containers from 1876. That's what it is. And I swear on whatever you find important to you that is absolutely true.
Well, he was raising his hands, folks. That's about the only thing I can attest to. But I will tell you this, Bob. These glasses, when I try to drink from them, they have a tendency to spill right down in front of you. And I know I'm not alone in this thought about the glass. And so I finally, for years, have been trying to figure out what the hell does neat stand for? Because there's nothing neat about it. It just dribbles down your face. I finally figured out what NEAT stands for. You ready for
What's
this?
that?
Stands for not even a taste, because it all spills out. Not
Well,
even
you know,
a
hey,
taste.
I have no problem spilling shit down in front of me without the glass, so I don't need a glass to help me get there.
Well, every glass should come with a disposable bib or a box of them. That's all I'm going to say about this.
That's not a bad idea.
That's right.
And if somebody has an extra couple boxes of those disposable bibs, could you please send me a few? I'm on a pasta kick right now. I could use a couple extra ones.
Well, God knows we don't want you to raid that dentist's office again and get those bibs. Well, the other, I love when I crack you up spontaneously there, brother. Anyway, moving on. Another great post was about the new proposed American single malt standard. Community member David Levine wrote a fantastic post on the Bourbon and Banter website about the standard and what it meant, and he got people talking about the standard and whether or not they liked the proposed rules and regulations and what we thought it was going to mean for the whiskey community. So if you're into American single malts and what that potentially can be, that was another conversation happening in the community. And then we got into the topic of home distilling. And when is the government ever going to let us distill at home legally like we can brew beer? And great arguments about it's dangerous, to some saying it's not dangerous, to some people saying, I don't care whether it's dangerous or not. There's no way in hell I'm drinking anything you make at home. So a lot of folks chiming in with their feedback, which is good to hear.
Why? Why do you, there is so much shit out there right now that's good. What are you going to do with your home distilling in your back barn or wherever the hell you've got it that's going to be better, you're going to spend 10 times? You want to go do it because you've got the money? Yeah, you go right ahead and do it. I'm going to sit here. You know, you're there on your smartphone, driving your smart car, going to your smart still, looking like a dumbass.
Well, Bob, you got to remember, you know, all distilling started in the home. So without home distilling, and much of it illegal, we wouldn't have any industry today. So just keep in mind.
Are we at the start of the distilling industry right now?
It doesn't matter.
No, we're not.
It doesn't matter if we're at the start. People have to practice. So think about this as a way to, you know.
People need to practice a lot of other things like reading and writing and arithmetic. Especially, you look at these yahoos running around out here, boy, I tell you right now. Yeah, that's right, folks. We've come to the get off my lawn portion of the podcast.
All right. So no to bourbon cream, no to home distilling, and a big hell yes for pumpkin donuts. So, all right, we're just keeping track here. Keeping track as
and
we go.
Caramel apples.
And caramel apples, right.
Not caramel nut apples. They have them. Quit putting shit on the damn apple. I just want a caramel.
That's the nut
apple.
lobby. That's the nut lobby.
No,
What else can we ruin with
I don't
the
need the
nuts?
nuts. I don't need the chocolate chips. I don't need now when they do the caramel and then the white chocolate, like the apple pie covered donut. Or see, now you got me thinking donuts. Apple pie covered apple. That one I can handle. But all this other, take all this candy colored sprinkle shit off the damn caramel.
Well, here's the
caramel
important,
apple done.
Here's the important question, Bob. When you eat a caramel apple, do you slice it or do you eat it right off the stick?
I slice it
Right.
so that I can savor every bite. And with the beard that I have, and you have too, there's nothing worse. You go diving face first into one of these big ass caramel apples, and you got to wipe, half a pound of caramel off your face. That is not fun, folks.
Or a half a pound of hair in your caramel apple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's nice, yeah, because you wake up the next night in the middle of the night and you got a little caramel there. You can have a little snack in the beard, but that's not what we're wanting really to do here. So.
All right.
Yeah, I cut it up. I cut it up.
Same here. Just taking a poll, informal as it may be. All right. Well, those are some of the community things, and obviously now we're going to have to talk about caramel apples. So we'll be posting that soon. A couple other things we got going in the community. We are doing our first virtual barrel pick with the community. We partnered up with our good friends at KO Distilling, and we just couldn't make the schedules work to get out there to do a pick in person. And we said, hey, we really want to pick a barrel from you guys, but we want a really cool experience. Don't just mail us 3 samples. So they've mailed us 9 different barrel samples. And we have half the pick team is the Bourbon and Banter core team members, and half are members from the Drink Curious community. And many, this will be their first barrel pick. So we're going to spend a couple hours this week. We're going to kick off with a little bit of introduction from the distillery folks, learn about that. They're going to go off. We're going to do our tasting approach our process that we use, and we're going to pick another barrel. We are on track, I think, to have about 9 barrels completed here shortly. So we have virtual tastings, we have other gatherings, we have Bourbon in the Blind Club tastings and discounts, and we're going to have giveaways. We're going to give away some tickets to this year's Whiskey in the Winter in St. Louis. Great opportunities to spend an evening drinking over 300 whiskeys, spending some time with Bourbon and Banter and Drink Curious community members. All you have to do is head over to bourbonbanter.com/drinkcurious and register. You can register for free, or you can join a paid membership tier as well, your choice. But if you are a paid member at the right level, you're going to have access to our single barrel program. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that program, we are going to pick anywhere between 8 and 10 single barrels a year at this point, and we sell those all below normal retail pricing, right? So if you're in the group, you have access to this. We've done a Four Roses already. We've done French Lick. Or let me step back, Bob. Let me restate that. Four Roses, we've picked that one. That's come out. But we have a ton of barrels that are still coming because of delays in the supply chain. We have a barrel from French Lick Spirits, Breckenridge. And Breckenridge is really cool because it's their own distillate. It's almost 8 years old, so very, very rare and very delicious. We did a Maker's Mark Private Selection and a Knob Creek pick. Those are all coming. We did a Traverse City Rye Whiskey. That's going to be coming. And I just returned from traveling all the way out to Kirby, Wyoming last week to visit Wyoming whiskey in person, which has been on my bucket list for a long time. Steve Coombs and I headed out, and we picked a fantastic single barrel of Wyoming whiskey that'll be coming very soon as well. And, Bob, I didn't get to tell you this yet. They also gave us a taste of their 10th anniversary, 10-year-old Wyoming whiskey that'll be released in December. And
that's going to be a limited release in December?
It is going to, yes, but it is going to be in all 50 states, just limited amounts in each state. And it is fantastic.
I can imagine. You don't see a 10-year wheater too often.
That's right. So very, very good one to get a hold of. But our barrel of Wyoming whiskey will be coming probably sooner than some of these other barrels. In fact, if we had a large enough vehicle, they would have bottled it and let us take it with us.
Well, you're on a plane, damn it. What the hell bigger did you need?
Well, we were delayed as it was,
Oh, it wasn't your plane.
No.
Not your private plane.
No,
oh, yes,
no. I was going to buy that plane, but I got that third house, right, for the whiskey. So
Yeah, and it keeps filling up with more of the craft crap that they keep sending.
And I'm trying to stay humble. I didn't want to get a fourth one.
Okay. Well, I understand that. You mentioned the Traverse City pick, the rye whiskey from Traverse City, and I'm looking forward to that. And I do have to mention, when last we left, folks, we were talking about that trip you guys made up to Traverse City and the pie that was brought back from our friends at Cherry Republic. And I made some comments about those folks keep doing what they're doing, but feel free to send some pies and whatever. Well, no sooner did I close my big mouth than a package shows up at Pops' door and at my door with all kinds of things from our friends at Cherry Republic. I want to thank them for sending that. That got me through many an episode of Billions and some various other things, and cherry candy. There was some do-it-yourself cherry dessert mix in there, which I did myself and ate myself, and I let the wife have a little bite. But yes, it's fantastic. They said they can't ship the pies yet. They haven't found a secure way to do that, since it's perishable. But if you're up there in Traverse City, Michigan, and you dig cherries, and even if you don't dig cherries, you should go see those folks at Cherry Republic.
Absolutely. I echo Bob's sentiment. It was a very, very generous thank you gift and unexpected, but totally, totally appreciated. And I do have a way to transport their pies, Bob. I haven't shared this with you yet. It involves you and me and a big vehicle with comfortable seats. We'll go up there. We'll spend a week eating pies, and then we'll carry them back.
I'll get a note of medical necessity from my doctor for that trip, and I'll make sure to do it.
It's not really good for third-party delivery. But I hear there's a good chance if we do this, we'll also wind up with diabetes. So
well, I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm still waiting for somebody to make me that Luxardo cherry pie.
Right.
That's what I'm still waiting on. Come on, folks. Luxardo cherry pie. Bring it to Whiskey and Winter. Give it to Pops.
There you go. Absolutely. All right. So once again, if you want to be part of our world and hang out online, virtually, and in person, please Go to bourbonbanter.com/drinkcurious. Check it out. We got hundreds of people in there making fast friends and having a good time. And we'd love to have you be a part of that as well.
Located in historic Virginia, the birthplace of American spirits, KO Distilling is a state-of-the-art craft distillery that creates award-winning American whiskeys and small-batch Western-style gins. Longtime friends Bill Carlson and John O'Mara are the K&O in KO Distilling. They met as classmates and cadet midshipmen at the United States Merchant Marine Academy and have been friends ever since. After retiring, Bill and John set off to create craft spirits with local ingredients, high-quality production methods, and a passion for involving their local community. Now 7 years old, KO Distilling is proud to be one of almost 60 craft distilleries in Virginia and a popular tourism destination for spirits lovers. Take a virtual tour at www.kodistilling.com. KO Distilling bottled its first 4-year-old Distiller's Reserve Bottled and Bond in 2020, which was followed in 2021 by a 4-year-old Distiller's Reserve Bottled and Bond Rye Whiskey and a 6-year-old Bare Knuckle High Rye Bourbon, all of which are highly decorated and fantastic. By the end of this year, all of its aged whiskey will be at least 4 years old. KO products are available from retailers in many states and online. Check out kodistilling.com/banner for more information. And let me tell you, folks, we've got a single barrel that we're picking right now. We love the stuff that Bill and John do at KO Distilling. Trust us, this is one craft distillery that is absolutely fantastic. Check them out at kodistilling.com.
All right, Bob, I think it's time we dive into the whiskey news. What do you say?
There we go. Let's do it.
All right, folks, we've got a lot of news to share with you today, including some new releases. But before we get into that, we want to talk about some that we're really, really excited about being involved with. And we may have mentioned this before, but this November down in Louisville is going to be the Bourbon and Barbecue Louisville event on the waterfront. And we're really, really excited to be running the podcast tent for them. We're actually calling it Drink Curious Live, presented by Bourbon and Banter, where this is actually going to be the launching point for a new podcast that we're going to be putting out, which is going to be an interview-focused podcast. We've gotten a lot of requests for that, so we're going to debut it down there, and we hope to see some of you there. But instead of us talking about how great this event is going to be, we actually have the co-founder and director, Grace Fitzmaurice, with us, all the way from Ireland via New Orleans. And she's here today to talk a little bit about the festival, tell us why we need to be there, and get into some general, misconduct and confusion and things of that nature. So, Grace, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, why don't we kick things off real quick and tell everybody what exactly is the Bourbon and Barbecue Louisville event, and why should they be there?
So this event sort of came about probably over bourbon. With the mayor of Louisville, Greg Fisher, and my client, Brooke Smith, who is local to Louisville, businessman, but philanthropy first. And so they came up with the idea of a barbecue event. And then they thought, well, what goes with barbecue? Why can't we just do bourbon cocktails? So we started to dig into what barbecue was around the world, because I read somewhere that barbecue in the United States is typically your ribs and your brisket and your pork butt. But barbecue in other countries could be tandoori, Korean barbecue. It's different than the barbecue we know, but most countries cook with smoke and fire. So we thought we'd encourage some of our pit masters and chefs to think outside the barbecue box and to incorporate international flavors. So we'll have, for example, Moroccan lamb necks. And then we decided we would pair a distillery with each pitmaster and chef, and they would create a bourbon-based cocktail to complement that protein. So I'm dying to try the bourbon-based cocktail that goes with Moroccan lamb necks. And most of our pitmasters and chefs have really stretched their I think maybe the normal for them, with certainly some great ideas, Lebanese, Korean, let's see, well, we have West African and we have Caribbean just to name a few. So those bourbon-based cocktails are going to get pretty crazy.
So my understanding, so there's a total of 20 pitmasters and 20 distilleries. Is that count accurate?
Well, we're at 22 and 22 pairings, and
Okay.
then our VIP pavilion will have 8 exclusive distilleries, not with bourbon-based cocktails. They will pour neat in that VIP area. And then I think we'll have 4 each day, but a total of 8. So, yeah, we're at almost 30 distilleries once we solidify just a couple more. And we have distilleries ranging from Angel's Envy to Maker's Mark, Barrelcraft Spirits, Kentucky Peerless, Castle and Key, Michter's, Pinhook, some really fun favorites. Blue Run Spirits. We, of course, have James B. distilling with Knob Creek and with Basil Hayden. And then we have some other surprises in there too, smaller distilleries.
Fantastic. Now, a lot of people, when they immediately think of an event that's going to have barbecue, think of a competition. But that's not the case with this. This is actually just a place for the pitmasters to come, show off their wares, have some fun, but in a non-competitive environment. How'd you make the decision to kind of treat it a little bit differently?
Most of these pitmasters are on what we call a circuit, the barbecue circuit, fundraising and also competitively, and they're exhausted by the end of the year. So for them to do this, we said to them, we're not going to make it a competition. This literally come, have a good time, blow it out, think outside the barbecue box, have some fun with your friends that normally you're competing against. And let's just do an award for best bite, best bourbon-based cocktail, and then best pairing overall.
Now, you talked about a VIP area. So how are the tickets structured, and what will people get based on the type of ticket that they purchase?
So general admission gives folks access to everything that VIP gets, but VIP has a certain private area with the fancy bathrooms. They also have lounge seating. They'll have access to just the VIP distilleries, general and the other 22 distilleries and pitmasters. But VIP, everybody wants a VIP experience. And we sort of fought against it in the beginning because we believe the entire event is a VIP event. But with a little pressure from folks that wanted a VIP experience, we gave in, and we've added that VIP experience. But everybody will have access to all of the distilleries and pitmasters. And then VIP will just have some separate distilleries that are not featured in the general admission area.
And what other sort of activities will be available for people who attend?
So we'll have our Drink Curious podcast pavilion hosted by you, Patrick Garrett, Pops, and Steve Coombs, who we're thrilled with having. He's an incredible writer in Louisville. He's kind of a celebrity, I think, in Louisville. So we have an education pavilion, which is curated and managed by Bruce Corwin of the Bourbon Brotherhood. And we have a TV tent because it's football in the South, and there would be an uproaring if we didn't. So we play some really fun games on Saturday. We'll also have a music stage with 12 hours total of live music curated by Scott T. Smith, who is from Appalachia. I don't remember the name of the town, but local, fabulous, keeping as much money as we can in Louisville, supporting local artists. We'll also have a really cool paint by numbers pavilion. That's a secret. You have to be there before we can release any of that information. But you'll have an opportunity to pick up a coloring something that you can color with. I'm not sure if it's paint markers or giant Sharpies, but that's really a fun element we'll have. It's sort of an Instagrammable moment.
And I've been checking out Scott T. Smith since you mentioned him, and fabulous musician. So really looking forward to seeing what he's got up. And I know he's helping you guys kind of coordinate the other musical acts. So I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So I know I'm going to be trying to sneak out in between our podcast episodes to not only get some food and some drink, but also to check out some of the music. Hopefully him as well in person. So that'll be fantastic.
Sure. I can always relieve you from the Drink Curious and make a fool of myself in there.
Oh, fantastic. That'd be great. So the dates of this event are Friday, November 11th, and that it's going to run from 4 to 9 p.m. And then on Saturday, kicks back off on the 12th, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., right?
Yep, that is correct. And then Friday evening, to honor our vets, because it is Veterans Day, we will have the national anthem, and we have arranged a flyover. I think we have 7 or 8 aircraft to fly over. And we have invited 20 veterans to join us. We'll have others too. We do have some pitmasters who have served, and then we have some distilleries who've been involved in the service.
And then I believe also if you get the VIP ticket, which is where I would recommend just because of everything you've talked about, and it also gives you early access, right? Each day?
It does. It do 30 minutes early access, and that food is being prepared by Chef Newman Harris of Newman Miller, of the Harrison Smith House in Bardstown. Incredible chef. I can let you know that they're preparing quail and oysters for VIP. So VIP folks will definitely have a little bit more.
Now, I just want everybody in the audience to realize that we haven't removed Bob from this segment. His mouth is watering on the screen so bad that I think he's at a loss for words here.
Well, no, see what happened here. So when we agreed to do this, it was a bourbon barbecue, all that together, but they had heard us before, but they hadn't seen us. Once they got a look at Pops and I together, they said, look, we can only really afford to bring one of you down here to this barbecue thing. So Pops wins out, Pops is going to do that while I'm going to be back here, but I will send Ziploc bags, Pops, and several Igloo coolers to you, just for, when they end of the day, as they're, tossing stuff, just toss it right into the Ziploc bag for me.
Well, we know Steve's not going to eat that much. I mean, he's a big foodie, but he's a small man, so there'll be plenty left for you, Bob. In fact, I'll tell him to plate up as if he were you, and then we'll just.
Well, Steve can't carry that much food. Now, come on, man.
He's been training. He carried my bags to Wyoming. What am I going to say? Somebody had to do it. He's bulking up nicely. Now, Grace, there's a lot of different, events and festivals and things that happen in Kentucky, especially with bourbon involved. How do you guys think about this event as different from that? So if somebody's looking at how they're spending their money and choosing where events to go, or maybe they were at the KBF a couple of weeks ago, why do they need to come back and experience this? What are you going to give them that's going to be different and exciting, and just answers all their questions and says, yes, I'm going to go right now and buy my ticket?
So this event is different in that it's not a competition. We're not putting pressure on folks to decide what their favorite is because there's big money involved. Our underwriter has eliminated a participation fee for our vendor or for our pitmasters and our distilleries. This year, it's a way to celebrate food and bourbon, because we're mostly taught that food and wine goes together. But why can't you? What if you don't drink wine? What if you want to have a cocktail through dinner? So this is a little bit different, and it's showing folks how bourbon-based cocktails that are being created specifically for these pitmasters and chef proteins. It's something very different than food and wine. And we're supporting 3 different nonprofit organizations, Waterfront Park, on the waterfront in Louisville, VFW Post 1170, which is our veteran partner, and then Apron Inc., which supports the food service industry in Louisville. So it's not just come and have a good time. It's come and have a good time and feel really good about the money you spend. $20 from every ticket does go to our nonprofit partners. And we've just released, I don't think we've released it yet, but we are inviting 100 nonprofit workers. So if you work in the nonprofit sector in Louisville, we are inviting you to apply for 2 tickets to come and enjoy the event. It's a gift that our underwriter has made possible.
Very nice.
And folks, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going down there. When you get down there, not only are we represented in the podcast tent, but our hometown, St. Louis, is represented on the pitmaster side too. Get you some ribs from Pappy's if Pops doesn't get to all of them first.
No promises.
You got to do that, because folks come here all the time and they say, well, St. Louis is become very well known for barbecue. Where do we go for that? If they ask for ribs, you send them to Pappy's. Pappy's is going to be down there doing ribs. So Louisville gets to have a little bit of St. Louis brought down there in more ways than just one.
That's right. And if I get there first, I'm taking all of it back. That
He will do it. He will do it.
So Grace, now the big question, how does a woman from Ireland by way of New Orleans get involved with an event in Louisville? Tell folks a little bit about yourself, because I'm going to tell everybody when they get there to find you.
Please don't. I'll be under a table in the fetal position with a bottle of something. I forgot how busy events can be, and my background is working for Chef Emeril Lagasse on his foundation side. So I helped to raise millions of dollars on the foundation side for several years. And I was sort of lured away from that position to work with businessman and philanthropist Brooke Smith out of Louisville, Kentucky. I manage some of his giving, and then I have several other clients that I work with too. But I moved to New Orleans from Ireland 28 years ago, and fell into the celebrity chef world, working for several different celebrity chefs and around several different celebrity chefs. And I have not done that for about 4 years. And my client came to me with this idea, and I said no. And then I thought about it over the weekend, because I figured I could take all of the things that I loved and that were successful from the other events that I did, and I could incorporate them into this event and build a really strong, fun team. Because if it's not fun, I don't want to do it.
Very true. Very true. Well, let's see. Skills with food, celebrity chefs, philanthropy, whiskey. Folks, I don't know. If that's not enough to get you to this event, then you can come down for the sole express purposes of, seeing my beard. For a few dollars donation, maybe I'll let you stroke my beard, whatever. For a few dollars more, you can touch Steve's brilliant gray mane. Because we're givers here. We want everybody to be there. And this is the first event that we're going to do a live podcast as well. So we're really hoping we're going to see a lot of our friends and listeners are going to come down to the event and join us as well. And who knows, we may even have a few surprises up our sleeves as well. Well, actually, we were all going to wear tank tops instead. We're going to get new Drink Curious tank tops. But once again, it's a November event, so we'll have to check the weather accordingly. Bob, I believe you had a very important question to ask Grace.
Well, so Grace originally from Ireland, and she's from Limerick, Ireland.
Yes.
So we have to ask, do you have a limerick for us, Grace?
Oh my gosh.
What is your favorite limerick? I would say favorite dirty limerick, but we'll keep this, since you're not necessarily used to our brand of humor. Then we'll just
no, she's beyond our brand of humor.
She's beyond our brand of humor.
Also, I don't, because they're all very naughty, and I would run the risk of being disowned if anybody sent it to my dad in Ireland. So
yes. Well, see, I just
share that over a bottle of real whiskey. Irish.
There you go. Well, so there's another thing. So you got to go down there to hear the limericks from Limerick, Ireland. That's another added bonus to it. So
there you go.
Correct.
Well, obviously you're here in the professional capacity, so we won't press you on that at all. But we want to definitely thank you for taking some time out of what I know is a very, very busy schedule, pulling the rest of the details together for the event and sharing it, what you know and what your passion is behind this for our listeners. And like I said, I hope we get a ton of them to join us down to the event. And for those of you listening, we encourage you to head over to bourbonbanter.com/drinkcurious. That's our new community site. Make sure you join. Now, you can register for free, so there's no barrier to entry here. But anybody in that community is going to have a chance to win some tickets. We're giving away a handful of general admission, some VIP tickets, courtesy of Grace and her team at Bourbon and Barbecue Louisville. So we're going to be giving those away very soon, because the event is right around the corner. So do that as soon as you hear this podcast, and you might be able to join us and spend one hell of a weekend, right? 2 days hanging out, drinking, eating really, really good, and making a lot of new friends. So in parting, Grace, anything else about the event that you want to share with our listeners before you go?
I think this is a great opportunity to get face-to-face with some of our distilleries and pitmasters, and Certainly, the distilleries are really excited to do something different. They're challenged to come up with a bourbon-based cocktail that complements their protein. So this is something that's very different to most of the events that are out there. And we just would love to host you. And it's a small group. It's 2,000 general admission tickets and 250 VIP, and that's it. The space is fenced and secured, and it's just going to be a really good time.
Well, thank you once again for joining, and we can't wait to see you in Louisville in about a month.
Thanks.
Now, Bob, I am so disappointed you're not going to come join us down there in Louisville, but I know your job keeps you pretty busy. But I'm gonna train for the next month. I'm gonna stretch my stomach, and I'm gonna eat your share.
Well, I appreciate that, and so here's the other thing: the folks going down there to this event, what you need to remember, you're at a food and whiskey festival. The best friend you can have, like I said earlier, are Ziploc bags and igloo coolers. Just be walking around. After Pops gets all the stuff from me, then take whatever's left over, And for those of you you have friends going around those whiskey tents, those bottles get open, and if they don't get, plenty out, they don't always wind up back with the distillery. So you can go around there and fill up your cabinet too, Just go around and say, hey, you got anything? Yeah, they'll let you grab that there. And when you do that, make sure to tell them that Brett Atlas told you it was okay. So, my thing about this kind of festival, it's in November. It's right before the holidays. So you have a chance to get the friends, come and spend time with the people that you want to spend time with at this festival before you're forced to spend time with the people that you don't want to spend time with over the holidays. So there you go, folks.
Pure
just keep
genius.
that in mind and have a great time.
That's pure genius. I just want to say, Bob, there's a pro tip here for everyone as well. There's a good chance the temperatures are going to be cooler in early November. And that means jackets. And the amount of additional Ziploc bags you can affix into a sided jacket, it would blow your mind how many you can put in there. So if anybody's coming to this event, and if anybody wants to balk about ticket price, just remember, a little planning, you can eat for 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
There you go.
Right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We are here to help, folks.
And I'm not going to say you should wear a camel pack back or whatever they're called on your back to fill with whiskey. Make your own infinity camelback. But there's options. I'm just saying, you got options. All right. Speaking of options, this is a celebration of Louisville, right? Grace is telling it's all about Louisville and celebrating everything that's going on. And, one of the companies you often see associated with bourbon-related events in that neck of the woods is Brown-Forman. And, we got some products from Brown-Forman we love, Old Forester. We got some products from Brown-Forman that we tease, such as the 200 flavors of Woodford Reserve, right?
Yeah.
Because when you taste like everything, you taste like nothing. But an article, news announcement caught my eyes. That Brown-Forman is to purchase Diplomatico rum. Now, I'm getting more and more into rum, and so this caught my attention. And, according to the press release, and I don't know if this is true, Diplomatico rum family is the number 1 super and ultra premium rum and the number 2 super premium plus rum worldwide. So pretty big brand. And Brown-Forman's taking it over, obviously, because they see an opportunity to expand the portfolio. And, I think it's always good to increase, support and distribution. But I have to tell you, the real thought that ran through my mind was, I hope they don't fuck this up.
I want to know what is defined as ultra premium and super premium.
It's a price point.
And super, that's all it is a price point?
Yeah. The price point, if you look at, I don't know off the top of my head the exact breaks, but if you look at like, the category of like premium bourbon, right? So I'm going to just type this in here because we have the power of the internet while we record this thing. And I think the premium price point is like $30 or higher. Super premium is like $45. I mean, it would blow your mind how low these benchmarks actually are. But yeah.
I've tasted plenty of shit that's $30 to $40 that ain't premium for shit.
That's right. Once again, it's all marketing, folks. Once again,
There
I
you
continue my quest of making good for 25 years in that industry. But hey, if you're a rum fan, especially of Diplomatico, keep an eye out for this. And if you're drinking a lot more of it than I am, if you see a change in quality with Brown-Forman taking over, you let us know. But they're more than just bourbon there at that little company in Louisville. but we'll see what happens as they move forward with that. I'm really waiting to see what Bardstown Bourbon Company does to Green River. Once again, that's my fingers crossed. Don't fuck that one up.
Me too.
Right. Speaking of interesting developments, I love sharing these little statistical things that get shared with us. And one that came in the mailbox the other day was the top 20 millennials drinking rates of 2022. States ranked from highest to lowest in rate of alcohol consumption among millennials. I don't know why somebody pulled this together, but I think it's interesting. And I think the first thing I'm going to share is, Bob and I, we're not big fans of Texas bourbon, right? It's a little hot, a little rough, right? And we now have statistical evidence that its quality of whiskey is directly related to the fact that on the list of top 20, it's number 20 at a 24.3% rate of alcohol consumption amongst millennials. So Texas, if you want to move up in the standings, you're going to have to make better whiskey. It's that simple. All right.
Just make better whiskey anyway, Texas. Do something right.
Now we're living here in Missouri. Missouri is right in the middle at 26%. But the surprising leader in alcohol consumption amongst millennials is the state of Iowa at 32.2%.
Well, what the hell do you have to do in Iowa besides drink and watch corn grow and
Tips
look
some
at
cows,
windmills? I mean,
run from tornadoes.
Cows. Yeah, there ain't shit to do in Iowa. My brother lives in Minneapolis. Every time I go to Minneapolis, I drive through Iowa. It's the most boring fucking shit I have ever seen in my life. It's just flat, boring, nothing.
Careful, we got some.
So
listeners.
what are you gonna do but drink?
They listen to our podcast in Iowa. Let's not.
Well, again, that's what do they got to do? They're going to listen to our podcast and drink. So, greetings to all you. I actually know several people from Iowa, and of course they left Iowa. So what does that say? But
we're in Missouri, so there you go.
Well,
we all get stuck somewhere.
We all get well, ain't that the truth?
Anyway, as a segue out of that, apparently there's going to be, I can imagine there's going to be a lot of people in Iowa that's going to be excited about this, but apparently Conor McGregor wants you, and I'm looking right at you, Bob, wants you to work for Proper Number 12 Irish Whiskey. The America's fastest, I fucking can't believe when it says, America's fastest growing Irish whiskey announces a national search for a professional partier.
Yeah, that sounds like some stupid shit Conor McGregor would say.
Right, so he's looking to start a national search for someone to join the team, quote unquote, at his wildly successful whiskey empire as a professional partier. All right, so basically he's looking for someone to roll up their sleeves and work harder than ever. I started from nothing and am now the CEO of the fastest growing Irish whiskey brand in America. Think you have what it takes to work for Proper Number 12? Apply for a job as a professional partier and come work with me.
Every time I see something from Conor McGregor, it reminds me I got to go take a Proper Number 2.
Oh, that stunk. So, Bob, let's see if you fit all the criteria here. All right. First of all, the candidate has got to be a heavy hitter, a risk taker, and you're going to unlock your full potential just like McGregor. And in this position, you're going to help introduce Proper Number 12 to whiskey fans nationwide. Host fight night viewing parties, which are probably what happens when you introduce people to Proper Number 12 whiskey fans. And then create new cocktails to hide the flavor of Proper Number 12. And then you're going to try your hand at running Proper Number 12's social channels. You must be 21 plus, go figure, authorized to work in the U.S. And you should have proficiency in sales and marketing along with strong communication and management skills. So I can imagine there are a ton of 21, 22-year-old people who can't even support themselves applying for this job. Qualifications be damned. But hey, if you think you can do it and you want to work with it and get the notoriety associated with this, the application deadline is going to close on the 20th. So by the time you're listening to this, you're just going to have a couple days. So act fast. And just go to workforconormcgregor.com, submit your application, cross your fingers, kiss your taste buds goodbye, and wait for confirmation email and when you're going to start this new wonderful life-changing job.
Yeah. Okay. Oh.
Well, the press release did its job. It got us to read it on the podcast.
Yeah. And just like everything, every other thing that Conor McGregor does, nobody really gives a shit.
And yet he still makes money. What are we doing wrong? All right. Well, Bob, enough of that. Let's talk about what's really important in this world. And that, my friend, is some new whiskey releases. We're going to kick things off here. Widow Jane has released The Vaults 2022. This is the fourth chapter in their seasonally released collection of the oldest and rarest whiskeys, and it's hitting shelves right now. Okay, this 2022 edition marries bourbons ranging from 14 to 19 years old. They've been hand-selected and set aside in the Widow Jane's Red Hook Brooklyn Rickhouse. And as ever, the Vaults is produced in hyper-small batches and will be released to the public in select markets through the holidays. Now, by the numbers, this is going to come in at 99 proof, and as always, because it's a limited edition, it's going to cost you a whopping $250 suggested retail price.
Well, it's 14 to 19 years old. And
Right.
I don't know where they source this from because it's not their stuff.
Right.
I mean, I'm guessing that, in the ever-growing world of allocated and limited edition spirits, a 19-year-old whiskey for $250 is pretty on par, if not a little under. But who knows what it actually tastes like, because none of us will ever see it.
That's right. Well, it's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day, and he had a rule of thumb that limited edition older whiskeys should be priced roughly $10 per year. So this
that would be nice.
Right. So this, so if you split the difference here and call it 16 or so, should be more like 160. So I do have a little offense with the price point, especially knowing the potential provenance and whatnot of the sourcing of this brand. But once again, as you said, most of us are never going to see it. I have requested a sample. I'm told it's en route, so we'll check it out and report to everyone and let them know if it's decent. I can tell you right now, probably not going to get an endorsement at $250.
Well, I'm not saying it's right to price it there. I'm just saying it goes along with all the other bullshit that's happening right now. That's the only reason it's priced there. So
Right. Well, let's talk about something else. Stoli Group is releasing their latest Kentucky Owl bourbon called the Takumi Edition. All right. Not to be confused with the Nomikai Four Roses stuff coming out in Japan that we reported in the last podcast. But this is actually a blend of 4, 5, 6, and 13-year-old Kentucky straight bourbons with mash bills containing corn, rye, or wheat, and malted barley. 100 proof at $150. So let's see, 10, 15, 28 divided by 2, 14 times $10, $140. So this is only $50 over the rule of 10 per year based on averages. Now, once again, we don't know the ratios there, so it could be way off. But the story behind this, Bob, is that this is a collaboration between master blenders John Ria, who is at Kentucky Owl, and Yusuke Yahisa from the Nagahama Distillery in Japan. Basically, John put together some blends, pulled some samples, and sent them over to Japan. And that's where Yusuke then took those and blended them together from sort of a Japanese perspective. All right. So he created the blends from those samples and the formulations, and this is ultimately what's resulting in the Takumi edition of the blend. And, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I kind of like this idea of like, let's see how American bourbon can be blended based on a different country's sensibility. Well, I just happen to have a sample in my hand, so we're going to give this a quick nosing and taste live because you never know what can happen, right? All right, nosing it, sweet. Got some rye coming in on the nose of that. Standard caramel notes. It smells a little off from a strong bourbon scent, but still it's pleasant.
Well, what they're saying about the nose is that it's got a savory mix of light rye bread with sweet caramel richness and a hint of tangy fruit salad.
Well,
I don't know. Is that fruit salad that's gone bad? That was left out on the counter like for 3 weeks, and then somebody thought it was new, and they went and ate it, and the pineapples like turned. I don't know what that means.
I wouldn't have sought tangy fruit salad, but I can get a little bit of tangy fruit in there. I think the nose isn't a bad description. What does it say for the taste?
On the taste, there's initial wave of buttery rye bread with a full-bodied feel. Savory mix of rye and caramel combine into a cinnamon and caramel sauce that clings to the taste buds and brings out a bit of fruitiness, mostly apple and pear.
Kudos to them for pulling all that out of that.
Well, yeah. So what does it actually taste like? That's the question here.
It does have a very prominent bread dough flavor to it, believe me. So that aspect of talking about the bread, I don't know if I call it buttery, but there is a lot of bready doughness to it, which I don't think I've ever gotten from a bourbon quite this full of a flavor profile before. So it's a little dry as a result. There's some of the normal sweet notes of caramel and vanilla and sort of the corn coming through with a little bit of spice as well. You know, that rye spice kicking in at the end. And it's not unpleasant at all, but it's a little dry and it's not really got a full enough flavor for me that says, hey, I want to come back to this. So it's a little off profile from a standard bourbon flavor profile, which based on the approach to this and sending it to Japan and having them blend it from that perspective is exactly what they were trying to create. So if you're into exploring different flavor profiles in your bourbon, that's not typical. This may be something you might enjoy trying, but I would say if we're going to do this on our bottle, bar, or bus rating, I would put this in a bar. But they're saying that this is going to sell for $150 retail. Once again, only because it's a limited and being marketed that way. From a quality perspective, I wouldn't invest a lot of money into chasing a bottle down or spending a tremendous amount on a glass. A $15 pour would be reasonable, but you're probably going to find this more in the $25 plus range for a pour based on that price of that bottle. So you really need to be committed if you want to chase this down, folks. It's not bad, but if bourbon and bourbon style flavors are what you're looking for, this is going to fall a little bit short on that. All right. Well, something, Bob, I know that is a little bit more dear to your heart. Blackened has a new product out. I know you're a big fan of their cast strength when it came out, but they're doing a second release in their Masters of Whiskey series. And this is the Blackened X Wes Henderson Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in white port wine casks.
White port wine casks. So the regular Blackened's finished in brandy and port casks, I think. White port wine casks. I don't think I've ever seen that as a finisher.
No, I have not. And, this obviously involved Wes Henderson, right? So Wes and his father created Angel's Envy, which is known for their port cask finishing. I don't believe those are white port casks, though.
No, I don't think I've ever seen a white port. No.
Right. So this is going to be a little bit different. It's a base of 6-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon finished in those white port casks. And supposedly the resulting whiskey features notes of pear, raisin, cinnamon, cigar box on the nose, and hints of pear, honey, chipotle, cinnamon, vanilla, barn hay, and walnut on the palate.
Now, wait a minute. What the hell is barn hay and hay? What is the difference between barn hay and hay? Is the barn hay smelling more of the animals that were in the barn?
Yeah,
with
it's
it?
got the terroir of the barn.
Okay, the terroir of the barn. So you're literally telling me this smells like horse shit.
Well, it's infused with horse shit.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just the subtle aromatics, not the flavor, just the aromatics.
Okay.
It's organic matter influenced hay. Aged in fine dusty wood.
Somebody's going to rip that off and use it. Organic matter influenced hay.
Well, hidden barn maybe. I don't know. We'll see what they.
Yeah, but
they can run with it. I don't know. Like I said, I was in marketing.
I'm sure Jackie will grab right a hold of that.
Yeah, right. She's like, you bastards, stop. That was our next release.
We'll give you that one for free, Jackie.
That's right. I mean, the tasting notes sound good, but of course, it wouldn't be blackened whiskey without also sonic enhanced aging with the Metallica playlist.
Yeah. Barrels pummeled by the low hertz frequency of Metallica's music.
Now, good news or bad news, depending on how you look at it. This is a 6-year-old whiskey, so by that means it would be around $60, but this one is $99. So at least they kept it below the critical $100 limited edition price point, which there's something to be said for that. But ultimately, someone is going to have to taste it to find out if that's worth it or not. But if you're a fan of Metallica, it's a done deal, right? You've already pre-ordered 6 bottles of this. If you're a fan of Wes, and Wes is a great guy, always enjoy his company. you're going to go after this. And a lot of people don't realize that Wes is a huge music fan. Spends a lot of his time going to concerts. He has access to hang out with a lot of the musicians. So this is right up his alley. And I believe this is his first whiskey project to debut since retiring from Angel's Envy. So it's good to see him keeping his hand in the game and getting involved. And hopefully if we can get our hands on a sample, we'll check it out and report back on whether or not you should drink it for the finishing, because the sonic aging, well, we all know that's a little bit of bullshit.
Yeah, I'd be curious to taste it because it's a bourbon, as opposed to the blackened is an American whiskey, and they did a rye. But this is perhaps I'm not as up on my blackened releases, but I don't know that they've done a bourbon yet.
That's right. Redemption's launching a new product called Surly Straight Rye Whiskey. It's a first of its kind innovation. And what they've basically done here is they've taken a process used in France for wine. They call it the French Surly winemaking process. And it's designed to add layers of complexity and roundness. And basically what they've done is they've taken their, I love it to they say their award-winning classic pre-prohibition rye mash bill, which boasts a rye content of 95%, as I like to call the MGP 95.5 rye whiskey.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they've added the back set that comes off the still during distillation, and that's called the whiskey lees. And that gets put into the barrels with the actual distilled whiskey before aging. And then they're going to rotate these barrels during the process to mix up the lees and infuse the whiskey with more flavors. And so this Surly method supposedly invigorates the rye's complexity and enhances the whiskey a little bit more. And then, of course, it's non-chill filtered, which I love. And then they bottle up and they sell it. Now, this is a really limited release. It's only going to be in New York, Delaware, Florida, California, Texas, and Maine from October 1st forward. And it's going to be, brace yourself, Bob, $59.99. Finally.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
They're even doing that with they're even able to do that with the new bottling that they have to undertake from that lawsuit with Diageo.
Funny you should say that. The bottle shot for this looks like the older style bottling.
There you go.
So I don't know if it actually will come out that. And
Good for them.
What Bob's referring to is Redemption's been in a lawsuit with Diageo via their Bullet brand for quite a while. Bullet claiming that the Redemption bottling causes brand confusion in market because of similarities. And fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, for Redemption, they lost that lawsuit and Diageo won. The good news for Redemption is there's no punitive damages. They don't have to pay anything. But they were told they had to stop using that bottle immediately. Anything that wasn't out on the shelves, I believe, has to be returned and rebottled. So you're going to see a whole new look and feel for Redemption moving forward. And we'll see if there's going to be any additional lawsuits or counter, sort of filings on that. But for now, it's going to be a little bit of a bottling change. But if you like their whiskey, obviously that's not going to change what's going on inside the bottle. So
and I don't know how it would cause confusion. I mean, Bullet buys their rye from MGP, Redemption buys their rye from MGP. So there you go.
Well, consumers still looking for the Keebler elves. That's all I got to say.
There you go.
That's all.
There's no lie there, folks.
That's right. Speaking of lies or factual, Wild Turkey's got a product that's harkens back to one of these incidents that we're not sure is really true or a marketing truth, but they've launched a new Master's Keep line this year called Unforgotten, which is, as they say, inspired by a decade-old mistake. First of all, I can't believe this should happen 10 years ago. I mean, this is amazing.
It was a quote-unquote mistake.
Right. So this is basically a mingling of rye and bourbon. Okay, and this all goes back to an incident that happened in 2010 when a Wild Turkey crew member accidentally, and now we're doing air quotes here, folks, mixed a batch of young rye whiskey with a barrel of mature bourbon. I don't know how this works, and it's been explained to me how this mishap happens, but I've always questioned if it really happened. But anyway, Eddie Russell loved the resulting mistake, the mixture of these. And so that idea is what's kind of inspiring this. So this release this year is 105 proof, and it's made from some of the oldest rye whiskey ever released by Wild Turkey. And more specifically, it's going to be 8 and 9-year-old rye, which is then blended in with 13-year-old bourbon. So 13-year-old turkey, that's some good shit, man, right?
Yeah.
And that is some old rye for these guys. So I'm excited about the resulting product. Okay. It's going to be flavorful. If you like wild turkey, I think it's going to hit all the cylinders, all the touch points that you're looking for. The downside of this is it's a 13-year-old bourbon and 8 to 9-year-old rye. It's got a suggested retail price of $200. So this continues Wild Turkey's recent streak of disappointing the fuck out of me with their pricing strategy in these limited editions. And I tell you, I have such a love for the liquid and the brand and the folks at this pricing stuff they're doing is just absolutely killing me.
And that's what was Master's Keep last year? Was it still at 150 or 129? I forget.
No, I think it was around $150.
Yeah, it's been between 129 and 150 for, a long time, and now it jumps up by $50.
Yeah, somebody at Campari, the parent company, is putting the hammer down on these guys from that, single rickhouse stuff we talked about last time, to which, I actually had a mistake. I was complaining about the price of $250 a bottle for a single rickhouse single barrel. Well, it turns out I was wrong. It's actually a batch product, so it's not even a single barrel, making that price point even more egregious. And now $200 for this. And, I love the product, and I'm sure I'll like this whiskey. But the price point's killing me. And I really wish they would reconsider that and whatnot. But people pay it, they'll sell out, and this will go for far more on the secondary market. So if you want to get hold of it and you can afford $200 a bottle, better act fast. That's all I got to say.
Well, in other new news, and this one I was very surprised to hear. But apparently the long-asked question is finally being addressed by Jack Daniels themselves. They are formally addressing the bourbon question. They're going to release their first ever Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey this fall as a distillery exclusive release. It's not going to be age stated, but it is said to be between 5 and 6 years old, and features a new high rye mash bill that Chris Fletcher had been working on since he returned to the distillery in 2014. He was there for a number of years. He left, went and worked at Buffalo Trace. When he came back in 2014, he was the right-hand guy to Jeff Arnett. So this mash bill is 70% corn, 25% rye, 5% malted barley, which is a significant departure from the brand's traditional mash bill, which is 80-12-8. And the 12 is malted barley and the 8's rye that they use in the Tennessee whiskey. So Fletcher said he finally wanted to address the most debated question in American whiskey. If you ever go into it, you want to get some bourbon folks arguing, just ask them if Jack Daniels is bourbon. His grandfather, Frank Bobo, was the master distiller at Jack Daniels from 1966 up until 1989, and when he retired. And there was a rumor that Frank had tried to get bourbon distilled the last decade that he was on the job there, because he foresaw the bourbon boom that would eventually come out, but was shot down numerous times. And I got to tell you, this is fantastic reporting from the Bourbon and Banter Fucks here. Our Fucks, the forensic undercover knowledge seekers, those folks are doing some great work bringing us this. But so his grandfather had tried to distill bourbon. It was shot down multiple times. He said when Fletcher came back to Jack in 2014, he had many conversations about bourbon versus Tennessee whiskey with Jeff Arnett, and he believed that the Lincoln County process makes Tennessee whiskey unique, even though all other aspects of the whiskey are what makes a bourbon. So when he came back, Arnett gave him quiet approval for a 10-barrel experimental batch bourbon. So this is I'm excited to see this. I don't know that I'll ever see it, but he knew it would be a risk to distill it without using the Lincoln County process, but that's what they're doing here. He thought his approach could create something special, so instead of number 3 char on the barrels, which is what Jack uses for all their Tennessee whiskey, the bourbon is aged in number 4 alligator char barrels, which is the first time that Jack has done a release with that barrel char. And then as a nod to the Lincoln County process, it's not going to be filtered through the maple charcoal like everything else that they do is. After the whiskey matures, the barrels have 5 staves of maple charcoal inserted into the barrel and then are aged an additional 3 to 4 months. So the staves give the whiskey a sweeter note while maintaining a bolder flavor profile than the Tennessee whiskey does. So apparently on the palate, the whiskey is a big departure from the signature sweetness of Jack Daniel's. The staves bring out a cereal note, Flintstone cereal specifically. So the fruity pebbles note, which I'm wondering, Pops, maybe the breeze from nearby Tullahoma, Tennessee, carried over to Lynchburg and brought some of that Flintstones stuff there. I don't know. So the cereal combines with cinnamon, nutmeg, and toasted marshmallow on the palate and then finishes with a rye spice and chocolate caramel. Fletcher says he wanted the bourbon to be accessible to their regular Jack drinkers, but also give bourbon drinkers something to be excited about. So the sweetness on the palate is muted, with the baking spices coming forward and the rye spice on the finish really standing out. And our Bourbon and Banter Fucks had a private conversation with Chris, and we appreciate him sharing this with us. It's going to be bottled at 94 proof. It's a distillery exclusive release. Jack Daniel's Tennessee Straight Bourbon Whiskey will be sold in 375 milliliter bottles for $34.99 at the distillery beginning in November, just in time for the holidays. So Jack Bourbon, man.
Well, that's been the number one question that starts bar fights, right? Because you have people who will answer correctly with it's technically a bourbon. And then you have people who say there's nothing bourbon about it because it's a Tennessee whiskey. So now the question is, does Jack make a bourbon? There you go. There you have it. Now,
there you have it.
I'm not one to wait in line, and I'm not going to, but I'll tell you right now, you folks who like to get in line for this distillery exclusive stuff, you better pack your car up now and get ready to go. And just do us a favor. A while ago, we had heard about that fight that broke out at that liquor store in Kentucky, and we were hoping somebody captured some footage for us because we thought we'd start a new segment called Tater Mash. And it would be, the highlights of the most recent
recent line
whiskey
fights,
taters
yes.
getting fights. When I went to college, it was like bum fights were the big thing. So now it's Tater Mash, which is bourbon aficionados, bourbon taters, I should say, getting in arguments while waiting in line for exclusive bourbon. But hey, if you're a Jack fan, you're going to want to get one of these. You're probably going to hire a couple of mules to stand in line too, because you're going to need one for the collection, right? And help pay your mortgage in 5 years. And you need the other one to drink.
It's 10 barrels. I mean, it's only got to be a couple thousand bottles.
Yeah. I mean, and so if we extrapolate that up to 35 times 2 is about $70. That's actually not bad for something that may or may not ever get released again, right? Depending on success and feedback. And guys, after talking to Jeff Arnett about his experience there, Brown-Forman, the masters behind this, it's a lot easier for them to buy a rum distillery, as we mentioned earlier, than it is for them to mess with a brand like Jack. So grab this one while you can, because you may never see it again in your lifetime. Speaking of things you may never see in your lifetime, the final whiskey release, Buffalo Trace was kind enough to send out a release reminding us that the annual Van Winkle bourbon release is happening. This is much like the Tooth Fairy, Santa. These things happen and no one sees the actual thing. But what I thought was interesting in the release this year, Bob, was they said, to the delight of whiskey fans, there will be more bottles available this year than usual of almost every Van Winkle expression, due to both putting away more whiskey to age over 10 years ago and a higher yield than typical when moving from barrel to bottle. All right.
And but they don't say how many more. It's like one more.
No, they don't. And then at the end, they close out the press release and they say, it'll be available in October, but please be mindful that yields from the barrels are typically low due to the evaporation process during the long aging cycle, so supply is quite limited. Now, let's go back up here for a second. So there's 6 releases, right? There's the old Rip Van Winkle handmade bourbon, 10-year-old, okay? And that's the retail price of that is $70, $69.99. I can tell you right now, if you make enough of that, you're not going to have a problem with the low yield. You know how I know this? Because I drink a shit ton of Russell's Reserve 10 years old, and there's never a shortage of Russell's Reserve 10-year-old. Okay. Van Winkle's Special Reserve Bourbon 12-year-old is $79.99. Van Winkle Family Reserve Rye 13-year-old is $119.99. Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve Bourbon, the 15-year-old, which in my humble opinion is the best, is $119, which is climbed quite a bit since I ever saw a bottle on the shelf. Pappy Van Winkle's 20-year-old is $199, and the 23-year-old is $299. So this also marks apparently the 20th anniversary of the partnership between the Van Winkle family and Buffalo Trace. Because way back in 2002, the Van Winkles entered in an agreement with the distillery to produce, age, and bottle all of its whiskeys. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Buffalo Trace was already producing the wheated recipe for W.L. Weller bourbons at the time, so it made sense just to add this into the foray. So they've been doing that now for 20 years there, to obviously great success for the family and the brand because of the limited availability and the fact that everybody wants to have the unicorn. Now, once again, we wouldn't be the Bourbon and Banter podcast without just speaking to you honestly about this. Is if you're going to buy a bottle, the only reason you should buy a bottle is one, if you can get it at retail, and two, is if you're looking for a long-term investment. Because, folks, let me tell you this. If you're in secondary market and pay what the prices are that people are paying for this whiskey, you're going to be disappointed. Or you haven't developed enough of a palate. I'll go out there right now and say that if you spend a couple $1,000s on a bottle of these 15, 20, or 23-year-old bourbons and think you got every penny's worth of your money, let me know. We'll have a conversation. But you're gonna say no. If you can get the 15-year-old, it's $120 now. My theory has always been if I could get the 15-year-old for $85, $90, I'd buy it all day. 120 is starting to get to be a stretch for my pocketbook for what I get. I got a lot of other whiskey I enjoy just as well. So once again, make a good friend, someone who has lots of money who can buy the stuff, who has access, or worst case scenario, try it at a bar. And that way, at least your exposure on a one-time splurge isn't going to be a couple $1,000s.
And you know what's funny? It's the only whiskey release that you see that comes with, in addition to the tagline Pops mentioned at the end, it says the Van Winkle family and Buffalo Trace team would like to remind fans that even though the suggested retail price remains at what is considered a fair price, there is no control they can take over price retailers charge, meaning they know that this shit is going to get flipped for thousands of dollars and they just can't do anything about it.
Oh,
so
except the one thing they do have control over. And I'm glad you brought that up, Bob. I almost feel like I'm getting into the bourbon bullshit segment here, so I apologize for the foreshadowing. But you know how you control pricing? You make more fucking whiskey. So when a brand apologizes and warns people, it's a hollow statement. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, because if they wanted to control this situation, they just make more of it. That's all they have to do.
You know what else I could do? You can ship direct from distillery now in Kentucky, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
You can sell it yourself. You want to get the control on this? Sell it yourself.
Right.
Send it out to your bars and restaurants that you send it to, and then the other allocation that you're reserving for the public, sell it from the distillery.
Yeah. You know, you got to put
enough freaking resources. You got enough money.
That's right. You can put a few bottles in the stores to meet each state's requirements, right? And then go from there. Absolutely.
Since you know it's a problem, you clearly don't want to do anything unless there's a lawsuit involved where you're going to, make some money. So, buck up and do it.
That's right. Amen.
And I'm sure people would pay more than the MSRP to buy it directly from you, so they know what they're getting, that they'd pay $250 for that bottle of 20-year-old as opposed to paying $200, even though they should still only pay about $75. But, there are things you can do if you really gave a shit.
That's right. Amen to that. Well, Bob, you know what time it is?
It's time for some craft whiskey, because we haven't shit on enough stuff yet today.
Well, let's get to it. All right, folks, welcome back to the Craft Shoot. We haven't done this in an episode or two, but this is where we are going to try a bourbon blind. My wife was kind enough to pour some samples and give it to Bob and I with nothing but a number, so neither of us has any clue what this whiskey is going to be. So we may like it. More likely, we're not going to like it. But anyway, you will be entertained. So with that, let's go ahead and roll the dice and get into the Craft Shoot. Bob, let's nose
You
this
gotta
whiskey.
ask, why is Kate sending us this shit? What the fuck is going on? This stuff smells. You know what? This is like I used to live down the street from a bicycle shop, and if the tires on the bikes that they were trying to fix were left outside in the heat of the summer and you walk by there, I get this. This is horrible. It's rubber smell that.
Very vegetal.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's.
But you know what? It goes further than that. It smells like the bottom of a funky trash can.
You know what I'm getting? It's like when you get a new pair of sneakers or tennis shoes or whatever.
Ooh,
you get
yeah.
that new
Rubber smell?
rubber soles that that's what I'm getting.
That is,
Oh, this is bad, man. This is
all right,
bad.
now, hold
Does it
on.
taste that bad?
Hold on. Oh, he's going to ruin my thunder here. Just wait for Bob's face here, guys. You can't see this shit. All right, he's saying a Hail Mary. He's not even religious. I can tell you this. Beyond this funky trash rubber smell, there's some aromatics there, but man, we're talking about digging deep. And Bob, oh my God, Bob, you okay?
Well, so
You look like you have like a
the
groin
palate,
pull.
the initial palate is not as bad as the nose is, but the finish, oh, what the hell, man. Now it's like somebody set those tires on fire.
Well, you look like you were experiencing a groin pull there. That looked painful.
No, it's just I'm just blowing out a lot because I'm trying to get all the vapors out of my mouth from having just tasted this shit, whatever the hell this is. Oh, for fuck's sake. Why, folks? You don't need to be doing this shit. Other people make good whiskey. Just leave it to them. Stop it. Knock this shit off. What is this, Pops?
Wow. Well, let me just, you say the initial palate is fine. That's just because you didn't swallow it yet.
Maybe that's what it was. I got a little bit of cinnamon on the initial palate, and then the rest of it went down, and it just it went wrong from there. I don't know what is worse though.
I think I know what this is because I tried it when it first came in the mail. But let's go ahead and open up. All right, what are we drinking here, folks? Well, this appears. And I like the other stuff they put out. This is Yellowstone's family recipe bourbon.
Really?
Yeah. This is the stuff that they actually distill at the distillery. So a lot of people may not realize this, but limestone, if you get Yellowstone bourbon, every version but this, it's made somewhere else. It's source whiskey. Okay. Rumor has it the regular limestone has been from Heaven Hill. And that the private barrel picks like we've done were from Barton. That's the running.
Yeah, and they need to go buy more of those.
Right. This is the mash bill and the yeast strain that they resurrected from their history, and have been making at the distillery for 5+ years. And I know when they first started, they were putting a barrel a day of this away. Now they're doing like 2. And the story is that this is a jug yeast that they found an old family yeast jug, and we're able to go to Firm Solutions, which are also the folks that own Wilderness Trail, and scrape out the yeast, do some DNA analysis on it, and recreate the yeast strain. And this goes back then, is also then used from the mash bill. And I'm scanning here if it has any more details on the exact mash bill. But I don't know. It's 100 proof. Retail pricing is $70. And
you couldn't give me $700 to drink that again. That's bad, man. That is bad. And I know that you guys tasted some stuff down there that was good. That was their own distillate. But was it a rye?
It was a rye.
And not
yeah.
Okay. And so this, because that private pick we did, I absolutely loved, but it wasn't their stuff. This is not good.
And it's funny. I remember this now when it came in the mail. I remember tasting it and was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I thought like, did I get a bad sample? Because this happened a few times where something funky happens in the mail or the closure. And I reached out to some folks that also got samples, and the feedback was the same. And in fact, one such person, and I'm not going to name names here, but he had someone else from the industry with him at the time, and he put it in a glass and held it to it. And the first reaction was like, oh, hell no.
Well,
So, I mean,
we're not alone in this. We're not trying to make it bad. We like the folks at Yellowstone.
no, we do. And like them a lot.
They have some fantastic folks down there.
They do. Fantastic folks. But God, this one just misses the mark for me. But you know what? It's kind of funny. They also do a malted rye, which is kind of funky. And some of that vegetal note is in here. But with that rye, it just works better. It's still not something I'd drink a full-size bottle and on repeat, but it was interesting flavored. This doesn't know which way to go. So that's a hard pass on this one.
I know which way it's going.
So on the bottle bar or bus, this rates as a drain pour, is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is a flush.
All right,
that's
this
correct.
is a flush. All right. Well, that is truly unfortunate. Wow. What a way to return to the craft shoot. Holy crap. All right, hold on. I gotta pour something here.
Yeah, fix your palate after that. I had some of that Davies County that I was drinking earlier. Finished in Missouri Oak, 96 proof. That was tasty. I had not had it before, but it was tasty.
Oh, there you go. God
And
bless
that's a
the
Luxco
Missouri Oak.
product.
That is. God bless the Missouri Oak. All right. There you go. That helps. A little 4 rows of single barrel. All
There
right.
you go.
Well, folks, craft shoot. We can't guarantee that we're going to like it, but we can always guarantee it's entertaining. So if you have a bourbon you think we need to put in the craft shoot rotation, well, drop us a note, podcast@bourbonbanter.com. I'll give you an address. You can send it to us, and hopefully you won't poison us. And because quite frankly, I don't think you can get much worse than what we just drank.
Don't be sending us any more of that turducken shit either.
Turducken. All right. Well, now that we're properly fueled or laced or fucked up or whatever it may be.
Yeah, something.
I think it's time for some bourbon bullshit. All right, folks, it's time for Bourbon Bullshit, which is the #1 intergalactic, pan-galactic, and global #1 hit for all podcasts. And that intergalactic just came in. That's a new rating.
Okay, the Pan-Galactic. Sorry about that, Paul. We'll pay you the royalties on the use of that name. I got a buddy that's his company's name.
Oh,
so
really? Okay. Well, I'm really hoping we hit interstellar charts soon, but we'll see. All right. So last episode, I think it was Bob, we talked about this whole bullshit thing that came out from Silent Pool Gin when they launched this whiskey honoring this maiden, and Becky Paskin came out and said, "How is the sexual assault of a woman a good backstory for a whiskey?" And we said,
and they put the story on the back of the bottle.
right. Now, and if you want to know the full story, go listen to the last podcast. But we said we're going to revisit it in a month and see if the brand actually did the right thing and did a mea culpa and apologized, right? And did we hear anything?
Nope.
Silence.
They said nothing about it. So we went back and when we looked this month to see what happened, then we found something because that note hit from Becky on Twitter right when we were going to record last time, and we didn't have an opportunity. And we looked, and it was preceded the day prior by an interview that Sky News did on a business podcast with Ian McCullough, who is the founding director of Silent Pool, who commented that they have made the whiskey, that there's something for everyone. And he says, and this is quote unquote, "I don't want to end up making an inappropriate remark, but it's a more male-centric liquid. We've got a lot of customers we can now satisfy."
No.
Okay, so you launch a whiskey specifically to appeal to men? And Becky commented, she said, gendering drinks is a dangerous territory. Brands should lead with purpose, not gender. Drinks gendering is the root cause of so much sexism in the whiskey and beer industry. And said she'd love to sit down with the folks who host that podcast to get everybody, to set the record straight about that. Gin is not just for women. Whiskey is not just for men. And we have a lot of listeners and writers who work with us and people that we know that feel, everybody feels exactly the same way. We know a ton of people, women who drink whiskey, men who drink gin. It's not necessary. it's something that you would have heard 30 or 40 years ago or longer. And so they issued an apology. He issued an apology, but his apology said, "I wholeheartedly apologize for my misjudged comments in a recent live interview. It was never my intention to alienate or offend anyone, and it doesn't reflect my own or Silent Pool's values. Apologize for my misjudged comments." That means he's sorry that people took his comments the wrong way. He's not actually apologizing for what he said. So fuck him and the brand.
Well,
And,
Silent Pool Gin was always on the top of my list of new brands to try. So,
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line in this is, folks, think before you talk. And as he says, don't assign genders, don't sign these preconceived notions. That time has passed, and just focus on releasing things that people want. And you know what? You'll do just fine. Unlike so many other people in the industry who decide to create products that, well, Bob, maybe there's really not a market fit for them. What do you think?
Some of this stuff, there's several whiskeys that have run across the community within the last couple of months that are, that are doing the same kind of bullshit that this is doing.
That's right. And,
and and even those that have got major, money behind them, shit like Screwball. I was a year ago, we were talking about all this Screwball, shaggy black carpet van that was going around saying "get screwed" or some shit like that.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
yeah.
Are you fucking serious? Just fucking stop. Are people that desperate to go after, the ignorant frat boy, misogynistic, sexist male drinkers that they've got to do? Come on. Fucking morons.
Well, if you have to resort to it, it may be a quality issue. Just saying. So.
Yeah.
But, this is definitely going to be a contender for this year's Bourbon Bullshit Awards. And Bob and I announced that last month that we have opened the official call for entries for the 2022 Bourbon Bullshit Awards. And this is a crowdsourced thing. So we're not charging anyone to enter. We're not giving away any trophies. We're not going to make money off of this. We just want the honest people's opinions. So if you have a product, a marketing campaign, ad copy, an event that you've attended that you think qualifies for the Bourbon Bullshit Awards, send us a note, podcast@bourbonbanter.com, and we'll add it to the list. And then we're going to judge it, and we'll announce the winners later this year. And if you need some examples in addition to these folks that we just toasted, here's a couple other things that we think fit proudly in the potential list of Bourbon Bullshit Award winners. I got a press release the other day that said, "Never Say Die release inaugural batch of world's first bourbon to be finished in England." And here's a couple of the talking points that they highlighted for us. Having originally been distilled and rested in 2017, Never Say Die's first batch of barrels have reached English shores and will be on sale in the UK from late September. It is what is believed to be a first for the category. Never Say Die finishes its maturation stage in England following a 6-week ocean voyage from Kentucky. It's created by world-class bourbon distillers Pat Heiss and Shane Baker. That's Wilderness Trail for those just tuning in. Alongside a transatlantic team of founders in the industry such as horse racing, business, PR, and public affairs. Because when I think bourbon, those are the individuals that I go to.
Yeah.
And the idea was born at the Kentucky Derby and is inspired by the story of a lucky shot of whiskey and a legendary Kentucky-born racehorse that ultimately transformed the destiny of an at the time unknown band from Liverpool, the Beatles. All right. So the press release is an exercise in puffery. The language, I mean, this is like creative writing 101. But first of all, this is a UK product, so I got to understand that, hey, I'm not British, I'm not English. There may be a demand for this, but from where I sit, no one has ever said, you know what's really missing in the bourbon industry is a British aged bourbon. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. But they take the bourbon made by Wilderness Trail, which is good stuff, sweet mash process, different than sour mash, but good product. It's then put on a ship, sent overseas. What did they say? 6-week transit.
Yeah, 6 weeks on a trip.
Now, we've been there. We've done that. We've got Jefferson's Oceans bourbon. I think it's all a bunch of BS, especially if you're putting it in conic containers and even possibly storing it below sea. You're going to get some agitation, but the influence from the salt water in the sea, I think that's a pretty much just a marketing thing. Now, aging it longer in England, if it's still in the barrels, okay, if it was literally transferred in the barrels, which a lot of times it isn't, it's put into containers of some other sort, but if it's actually aged there, it gets interesting because the climate is different, and climate can have a big impact on the barrels. And having just come back from Wyoming, Bob, their whiskey goes dormant for half the year. And they've had a hard time reining that in, and they still can't explain exactly what happens. And they've got some of the best minds working on that product. So anytime you get into a cooler environment, okay, like England, it's going to change things a little bit. The rest of the whole horse racing stuff, that's all marketing. That's all backstory. It has no impact on the actual whiskey. All right. So I think the only thing at play here is the aging in the colder climate and how that changes what's going on. Obviously, this only makes sense because we got rid of the whiskey tariffs this past year, and makes a lot of sense. But this is one of those products that, as far as I know, no one was asking for. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this turns out. I've requested a sample. I don't know if we're going to get it because we're in America versus Britain. But the writing, the story, the fact that they're making this sound like the second coming, all, for me, screams Bourbon Bullshit Award winner.
You know, I'm looking, it says by finished, matured in Derbyshire to give it a uniquely British character. Does that mean that the nose is going to be pungent and it's going to take all the flavor away? I mean,
I don't know.
What else are they going to do?
Maybe you could put it outside a football stadium and all the punters could piss on it on the way out. I don't know.
Something like that.
I mean, that happened to that lawsuit in Scotland, right? Where the guy was urinating on the cask.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I don't know.
Distinct, uniquely British character. That means it's going to be devoid of flavor and smell like shit. There we go.
That's right. Angry with
now
the side of fishing.
I just pissed off another continent.
Well, we have a very small percentage in England following us.
Okay.
So we're okay. To go along with that, Last Drop Distillers introduced release number 28, which is Drew Maryville's signature blend of Kentucky straight whiskeys. Now, the Last Drop Distillers are out of London, but basically they're known for curating and creating the world's rarest and most remarkable spirits. And this is the release of its second signature blend. So created by Sazerac master blender Drew Maryville. This is a spirit comprised of a blend of vintage straight bourbon and rye whiskeys. And according to them, and this is important to understand, Bob, it's impossible to replicate. 1,458 bottles will be released this month, October, with a low retail price of $3,999.
Kiss my ass.
Now, these vintage bourbons, rare and vintage bourbons, were a result of Drew cultivating a collection of extremely small quantities of his favorite whiskeys at Buffalo Trace. You know, all those whiskeys that none of us can get because it's on allocation. So I'm glad he's putting some of that back. I'm not quite sure if I would call that stuff vintage, but hey, that's okay. And then he's blended these together. And he tasted 40 different vintage bourbon and rye whiskeys. And he eventually blended combinations of that and bottled it at 121.4 proof. And it's uncut and unfiltered. That's cool. I like that. But $4,000 a bottle, well, I'm going to have to call bullshit. Big time.
Just sitting there with the bottles, just, pouring a little each one, just grabbing different bottles there. What the fuck is going on?
You know, when I first read that part, it reminded me of the Johnny Cash song, where he's building the car over the years, stealing it part by part by part by part.
Ah, yes. He got it one piece at a time.
Yep.
And it didn't cost him a dime.
But here it's going to cost
You'll know it's me when he's coming down the road. That's right, baby.
But in this case, it's going to cost you $4,000. But keep in mind, for that $4,000, you get the bottle with Drew's signature, a bespoke bottle that suspends midair in an oak frame, It's got a signature green leather case, but they do include, God bless them, a 50 ml miniature for private enjoyment, because nothing says we know you're not going to drink this, you're going to hold it and flip it, than giving you a small bottle to taste. But as we all know, the true flipper, the true long-term investor will not open that 50 ml, because that will get them a 30% premium on the overall price by having that included. And there is a certificate of bottling and pocket-sized tasting book as well that will never be filled out. So
just stop.
For everyone that has everything, $4,000. And here's what's funny. If you've been drinking whiskey for, I don't know if it says in this press release when he started doing this. Oh, he became the master blender in 2004. So not even 20 years ago. So if you've been drinking, just put this in context. If you've been drinking bourbon for 20 years, there's a good chance you've had all the whiskey components in this blend. Maybe not at the age at which they were blended, but you've had the whiskey that's in this bottle. So just throw that out there. And for $4,000, it can be you. So, folks, that's a little bit of a guideline of the things we're looking for Bourbon and Bullshit Awards for 2022. So if you have an idea, drop us a line, podcast@bourbonbanter.com. And, of course, if you liked something about the show or something you absolutely hated, drop us a line. And just remember, we'll read the positive feedback, and the rest of it, well, it's going to go into a barrel of Malort that we just happen to have sitting in our backyard, because every once in a while we do want to fight our father. So we hope you've enjoyed episode 28. And as always, we really appreciate you tuning in and giving us your attention. And on behalf of everyone here at Bourbon and Banter, thanks again. And remember, folks, if you're going to drink
curious.
Well, what's your preference?
Bourbon, if you got it.
Bourbon from Kentucky.
I should certainly fucking hope so.